It appears to me that our economy could benefit more from fiscal stimulus. It also appears that it must reduce or at least stop the growth of the national debt. Do you agree? If so, how do you reconcile these conflicting goals?
Well, that is a bugger of a problem, and that is the central problem that we face right now. And you can take either side of that, and as long as you don't balance the two out, it's easy. I actually, have a disagreement with Paul Krugman, who's an economist that's long been arguing that the big problem with the stimulus bill last year was it wasn't big enough, and we should do more. They wanted to be like $2 trillion. And Krugman is a Nobel Prize-winning, economist, so he's got an argument. But the problem with his argument is it focuses on the short term. Yes, if we spent another $1 trillion, it would help the economy now. I know there's some people here who argue with that, but by and large, it's true. If the government were to, do another $50 billion or another $100 billion, it would help the economy. It would create jobs right now in the short term. The problem is deficits matter, and long term, you then have to pay the bill, which is why I thought not going the $2 trillion route, doing the reasonable stimulus, stopping our economy from going over the edge into the brink, but not trying to imagine that we're going to get back to 5% unemployment was the right approach. Right now, I don't think we can afford to do more deficit spending in that way.
Please explain the... Way ahead, you guys.
Make it quicker. No, we should have had the stimulus bill. It was a mistake. We should have done something simple, like maybe lower the corporate tax rate, maybe investment tax credits for hiring people. We needed to stimulate production of goods and services so we can get people back to work, so we wouldn't have to be paying all this unemployment and food stamps. Right now, unfortunately, we have a rising poverty and too many people that are dependent on government. Not only is that costing us a lot of money, but it's bad for the morale and health of the people. It really comes down to businesses will hire people when they know they can produce a product or a service that they can make a profit, and they have a certainty that that will happen into the future. And it comes down to we should have stimulated by looking at the corporate structure out there, reduce tax rates, did an investment tax credit like we've done in the past, and it worked. Like they did over in Europe, and it worked. Identified border with a fence or whatever it requires so they can be patrolled easily. But the other thing we need to do is like what we did in Pierce County. Maybe we need a national, or at least have the states do it, E-Verify system. Pierce County, I wrote legislation that passed unanimously, 7-0, so it must have been good, where everybody we hire has to be electronically verified through the Homeland Security to make sure that they are a legal worker. And anybody who does business with the county. And so we have all the businesses who do business with the county have to have an E-Verify system which makes sure that only eligible workers are working for Pierce County government or doing business with Pierce County government. If there wasn't jobs here for illegals, they wouldn't come here in the first place. That's the way one of the ways we solve illegal immigration.
I say that I fundamentally agree that we need to do more to confront illegal immigration, and we do have a federal E-Verify law, which I supported, and I think that's perfectly appropriate. I also supported the fence, and I support doing everything we can. I think those are important steps, and it undermines our economy. It undermines our economy for legal immigrants as well as, working poor, middle-class workers by having a bunch of workers that are off the books. And I've consistently supported larger budgets to enforce that. As I said, supported the fence, supported E-Verify. Actually agree that's the most important point. If there were not jobs here that were available for illegal immigrants, they wouldn't take them. But there's one other thing we need to do. Immigration has been a great positive for this country throughout our history. People come here because they want to work hard and they want to build a better life for themselves and their families. And our legal immigration system right now is busted. Microsoft had to open a facility up in Vancouver, BC, because they couldn't get immigrants visas, work visas, high technology, even sometimes their own employees from other countries in here. We need to fix the legal immigration system as well.
No, free speech is free speech, whether somebody wants to spend their money. If we start getting the government deciding how much you can spend and when you can spend it, who you can spend it, that's wrong. It's kind of crazy, if you happen to be wealthy, they definitely can't tell what you do. If you happen to have like Bloomberg in New York, have a $7 billion of wealth, you can spend $100 million in your own campaign, and they definitely can't stop you from doing that. So anytime the government tries to restrict somebody from spending money, then we have government get interfering with the First Amendment. We may not like how much the money they spend, whether it's the corporations, the unions, the special PACs. Hey, the money's being spent up there, and it's for us citizens to discern what is good speech. That means that is effective to us. I would not make any regulations. So I agree with the Supreme Court. They believe in free speech.
Well, there's a couple of troubling aspects of that decision. I think the biggest one is that the Supreme Court decided that corporations have the same rights as people. I don't agree with that. You can pore over the Constitution and all your strict constructionists here. I challenge you to find the word corporation in there anywhere. So how they were given that status in this decision is beyond me. It's deeply troubling. Second thing that's very troubling about it is that the people who spend all this money don't have to disclose where that money is coming from. The ads you see haunting your TV now are being paid for by who knows. And I think it is a reasonable expectation of voters to know who is supporting an ad. When Dick and I do ads, we got to come on and say, I am Adam Smith and I approve this message. Corporations get this money in from all over the place, and you don't know where it is, and I think it is undermining our system. And lastly, the Supreme Court in previous decisions has made it clear that money is not exactly like speech. I happen to like Bill Gates. I don't think he's got the right to $50 billion more speech than any of you do, okay? I think speech is different, and if you go too far down that road, it turns the country over to the corporations in a way that I don't think is good for any of us.
Why didn't the financial reform bill address Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac, two of the largest failures in this nation?
Well, it's kind of incorrect that it didn't address them, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have to now play by the same rules as everybody else. They're a financial service institution. Everything in the Wall Street Reform Bill will apply to them in terms of safety and soundness. But we've got a lot more work to do to unwind Fannie and Freddie, because, you know, when everything collapsed, that was the one portion of it that was, you know, the most difficult to deal with. And right now, a lot of the bad debt that remains there. I believe that we do need to unwind those and privatize them. I don't think the government, and the interesting thing about Fannie and Freddie is the government didn't actually back them, okay? It wasn't the law that everybody thought it was. So they made investments, and in making investments, they created them to the point where they were too big to fail, and they ultimately wound up getting that bailout. But they didn't get it any different than AIG or, you know, all these other firms did. So I think we need to unwind Fannie and Freddie, put them back into the private sector. The problem is there's too much bad debt out there to do it right now. It's going to take a period of time.
And I agree, Freddie and Fannie got way too big, and they were doing the job that the private sector really could do without Fannie and Freddie. Let's unwind them and eventually get rid of them. And part of the problem was, you know, a lot of people out there were talking about it, that Fannie and Freddie were making risky loans, they were getting too big. And a guy named Barney Frank was there saying, no, they're not. And thank God to YouTube, all that stuff's on the internet. And hopefully Barney Frank will also become unemployed here in the next couple of months.
How will you work to strengthen the healthcare law that was passed this year? Will you support a public option to bring competition to the health insurance monopoly?
Well, I believe we need interstate competition for insurance. That I agree. You know, I get my car insurance from a corporation in Texas. You know, we need hundreds and hundreds of corporations, insurance companies, chasing your business and competing for your business and giving you the exact insurance that you need without all these mandates that you have to get with your insurance. It's no different than, you know, when you go get car insurance, I don't know about your car insurance, but when you talk to them, they want to sell you everything under the book. You know, that should be the same way with healthcare. You go get your healthcare insurance, either through your company or through your private sector. You should be able to pick what you need and what you want and then make those kind of insurance. And that's what we need. We need competition within the state and outside the state.